will call this meeting of the Board Finance and Operations Committee to order. The committee would like to welcome the audience. Viewers may watch live board meetings online at tcaps.net/board eventually. Recorded meetings may be viewed on demand at the same address. The committee has set aside this time for public comment. Julie?
We have
No public comment. All right, we will move on to procedural items, which the first item is approval of the draft committee meetings from the prior meeting. Any changes?
They look good to me.
Good. Hearing no changes, those will remain as posted, and we will move on to bid services and purchases. The first item is AP Government, and I will defer to Kirsten Jones-Morgan.
Hi, good morning. So we have two AP classes that are renewing their current programming. The first is AP Government and Politics. The renewal includes 5 years of online access, 5 years of class sets, and 2 teacher edition manuals. The material cost is $46,691. That does include that kind of standard 10% contingency fund. The first year of the program will be paid for using ESSER dollars, with the subsequent years being paid for out of the curriculum budget. There will not be any professional development expenses, as this is just an extension of the program that they're currently using. The second class is AP World History. This is a 6-year renewal. Also includes online access and 3 class sets of the textbook with 3 teacher editions. This is a $50,726 request, and this can be paid for in its entirety out of ESSER funds because there are no renewables that are used in subsequent years.
I do have a few questions.
Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to point out in the March 20th memo, it does describe the ESSER curriculum funds for year 1 and then the curriculum department budget for ensuing years. But in the updated memo, dated March 25th, it only mentions the ESSER curriculum funds. I don't know if you caught that, but I think for consistency and transparency, that second memo should reflect both. Maybe we could get that updated for the board and executive packets.
Yep, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
And then I just was curious about the 2 AP purchases. I'm pleased to see that the staff believe that the results of student achievement data, specifically a score of 3 or higher on the AP exam and teacher satisfaction with the materials, was the justification for extending these. I just was curious, what was their benchmark for measuring student growth? I assume that's over time. Do you have some kind of insights for us?
Are you asking about the longitudinal?
Yes.
Okay, so I would say consistently our students on AP exams are outperforming at both the state and local level. So both Central and West had significant achievement in terms of AP. I actually will I can look and see if I can get the exact statistics for you. And that has been consistent for years. Oftentimes that is the measure is the AP exam itself. It's not actually a growth measure, it's just an achievement measure saying you either earn the credit or you don't. And we typically have nothing less than 75% of our students that take AP courses are able to earn that 3 or higher score.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for these 2 specifically, AP Government and Politics and AP World History?
Actually, all of the AP social studies classes were reviewed, and all of them meet that threshold.
Okay.
So none of them saw a decline in student achievement over the last 5 years that they've been using these products.
Okay.
West actually saw a slight gain. Central has always been very consistent, and both schools do very well. But I'll get you some specifics, Josie.
Okay, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Did you have anything else?
I have a question, but
Yeah, go ahead.
if you my only question was just around the contingency. So it looks like there are, is it for the, and I'm apologize because I'm looking on my phone. The AP government has 315, are they licenses or just subscriptions?
Correct.
And then the other one has a couple different sections, but it looks like 210 and 120. So I guess my question is that reasonable for our enrollment?
The 10% contingency, is that the?
Yeah.
Okay. That's, my understanding is that that's fairly standard.
It is.
And it is challenging when you're talking about AP courses because those are driven by student selection.
Okay.
But what we looked at was a four-year average of how many sections we typically run with how many students in each section. And picked kind of like a standard average to that and then put 10% on.
Perfect.
So I certainly couldn't say that an anomaly couldn't happen. For example, we're offering AP European History next year, which is a course that actually hasn't run in years past, but this year there was interest. And so it is very much driven by student choice. And so we build in that contingency. I think that that's been fairly adequate, but I don't know that we could say that, for some reason, all of a sudden, everybody wanted to take AP World, that we wouldn't have to see some adjustment to that number.
Sure.
Yeah, but I
Method
feel
sounds
like-
good, so that was all I was after.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Would you say that's fairly standard? I don't know that we've ever been outside of that, but to be honest, I haven't done AP social studies renewals prior to this, so I'm assuming that that makes sense.
I was just after the method, so
Yeah,
that sounds
okay.
great.
That was our method. We averaged the number of years over 4 years.
Excellent.
Yeah. I had a question about, this is in the memorandum dated March 20th. It mentions 2 teacher edition manuals for AP Government and Politics and then 3 teacher manuals for AP World History. Does that indicate that we have 2 certified teachers total across the district? So for AP Gov,
One
for
at each
example, 1 at each high school and
Correct.
AP World. So what happens if we do get another teacher in another section?
We would
Yeah.
buy another one,
Have
that's
to
why we
Divide
have
a la,
contingency.
a la carte? Okay.
Yeah.
And then the total numbers, including the contingencies of 46,000 and 50,000 approximately respectively, are those divided equally over the 5 or 6 years? So the first year's ESSER and then ensuing years will be curriculum?
The only, the top purchase, the AP Government is the one that has to be evenly distributed over the years because that does have a consumable. The second purchase is, we're able to do it one time. So that bottom number, the 50,726, is a one-time purchase that allows us 6 years of access.
Okay, so that one is purely ESSER then? No curriculum department
Correct.
funds down the road? Okay.
Yep.
That sounds great. The last thing I wanted to ask was in the quote from Perfection Learning, they did have a significant difference between their list price and their sales price. They're charging us the sales price, but I just couldn't understand what is the list price? Because in the case of the student textbooks, it's significantly lower than the sales price.
So I would say that that's probably a question that Cindy Farah does an excellent job of negotiating with our vendors. And typically what she does is she gets her initial bid and then she often works directly with the vendors to try to find ways to have savings. So my guess is that that was part of the negotiation.
All right. Yeah, okay. Dr. Van Wagner and I were just conferring over it, so we'll try to get that clarified. So the quantity of textbooks for the kids is $30.95 for list price and $134.75 sales price that we're being charged. So I just want to make sure we're not,
Is it,
we're getting a fair
Are you
price.
talking about the AP government class?
Yeah.
So there is 1 year that was, this year, we had to pay for an extension. So the product actually, the program actually expired mid-year. So we added, so the initial, the smaller number represents the prorated amount for the remaining 3 months of the school year, 3 or 4 months. The second number represents the actual amount if it was a full year. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I
it
don't
might
have
add up.
the-
I mean, just doing the math, 315 students times 134 equals 42,000, which is the sales price amount. So I'm not sure what's going on with the list price, that's all. But maybe you can get that
Yeah, we'll get a
resolved
clarification
before.
on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all for me. Thank you. Excited to see the materials continue because I know these are very popular classes and
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions?
no, I'm good. Thank you.
These are the first two items on the agenda. Any objections with moving those to consent calendar for the full board? I'm assuming these went through curriculum as well.
You did.
No objections.
Okay.
And we'll get that clarification to you guys beforehand.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 3, which is elementary social studies purchase. Back to Kirsten.
Yep. So the elementary social studies program has really been the process of 2 solid years of vetting, reviewing, and piloting curriculum. We really are purchasing a program for, or some products for the first time since 2012. Prior to that, from 2012 till now, we've been using an open resource, so a free resource that does require a significant amount of prep and printing. We do all of our own binders. And we really didn't think that it was adequately and sufficiently addressing some of the needs of the K-12 social studies standards. It is challenging to assess social studies. The only measurement we have is the M-STEP. And I think it is clear that our M-STEP social studies scores in 5th grade are frequently quite low. There is a lot of reason for that, much of which is that the content of 5th grade social studies on the M-STEP is heavily based on U.S. and Michigan history, which is actually a 3rd grade standard. So kids are 2 years away from when they were taught that content. I would also say that we've identified that the program we were using was not particularly robust and did not have a way to kind of cycle back and sequence and spiral back to covering some of that content. So the other dynamic at the elementary level is that we had some buildings that were using Scholastic News as a supplemental resource because they had PTOs that could pay for it. And we had other buildings that were not able to access that resource. So at the K-2 level, after the 2-year process, the recommendation is that we use Scholastic Classroom News Magazine. That is a recommendation of $147 that allows us 6 years of access to the magazine. It's distributed on a bi-weekly basis. You might all be familiar with Scholastic News. It's like a little, kind of just looks like a magazine that kids get. The initial year will be funded through ESSER dollars, with the subsequent years being funded through the curriculum budget. Again, that's because it's a consumable product and we're only able to pay for year 1 with ESSER dollars. There are no professional development costs associated with this purchase. The second is a program called Studies Weekly that mimics the same kind of product that Scholastic News is. The committee decided to go with Studies Weekly because we've had a lot of ability to influence the kind of magazines that we're getting distributed and have specifically asked for 5th grade to, again, cycle back to some of those Michigan history standards and core democratic value standards that we recognize weren't present in our current resource. The cost of Studies Weekly for 6 years is $109,771.20. That also includes that 10% contingency fund. And like the top purchase, the first year is paid for through ESSER funds, with the subsequent years coming out of the curriculum budget, because this is also a consumable product. Because Studies Weekly is brand new to teachers, we do recommend some professional development, and it's offered at no expense to the district. That was part of the package. I would also just, and I know this isn't the curriculum committee, but I would also just let you know that our language arts program that we are looking at potentially making a recommendation to move forward with, both programs that we're looking at also contain really a heavy component of social studies standards embedded in language arts as well. So we are not solely reliant on Scholastic News and Studies Weekly to deliver some of that content. We also recognize that our social studies programming we are working pretty closely with Summer Baldwin to look at ways in which we can do some more specific regional work to ensure that we're not only looking at Michigan history and U.S. history and those standards, but also looking at some of the local history that we would like to try to infuse into some of the program as well. So it's been an exciting couple of years. The committee has done some really good work, and I would say that these are good options for us, but in no way do they represent the entire scope of what I think needs to be covered when we're talking about social studies standards, which is why we are also looking at a language arts program that will also help support some of those needs.
Great. I just have a couple of technical questions. So I did notice for the grades 3 through 5 Studies Weekly, they're offering that up to 6 hours of the professional development to the district at no expense, which is great, as you pointed out. So it's a webinar, and I see that they're offering it, if you look at the fine print on the second page of Scholastic's quote, during July, August, and September of the first year of the 6-year contract. So I'm just wondering how we envision that working. That's going to be mostly the summer months or the first month of school. How do we incentivize our teachers to take, or do we require teachers to take it? Do they get paid for their time, for training?
Yep. So I will tell you that these are not a big lift for teachers. Like this particular program, when we piloted it last year, they had 1 hour of PD and were completely fine. This is a pretty self-explanatory process and program. So really what we were looking at, Josie, was to, in the month of September, at either one of the PLCs or TCR times, that would be an opportunity for teachers to have training in Studies Weekly. So we will not do it over the summer. We'll do it during that month of September. And oftentimes at the elementary level, social studies and science are two content areas that often don't start immediately. So the first month of school at elementary, there is a significant amount of baseline assessments that are occurring, classroom management, all of those things. Oftentimes, social studies and science don't begin until October anyway. So we feel very confident that if we can offer the PD in the month of September, that we'll be able to hit everyone. We also want it up to 6 hours because sometimes we have some anomalies that occur, and mid-year we might have a new hire, and this would also allow us to then loop back and say, if you haven't had an opportunity to do this training, that we would offer it second semester. But it's pretty straightforward. It's not a huge lift for teachers. Like I said, last year they felt pretty confident implementing after 1 hour.
Okay.
It's very similar to Scholastic.
Okay, so it's not a 6-hour webinar that they have to make their way through?
No.
Okay.
No, it's actually an hour and a half.
Okay.
That we can just segment over the year.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure that they were getting the time during their regular
Yeah.
workday to cover it, not having to do it in their own time.
Nope.
Okay, that sounds good. One small thing, I noticed Scholastic's quote was valid through 3/31, and we had spring break, and so our meeting is a little later than usual. Do we know if they're still going to honor this quote now that we're into April?
I thought Cindy was working with them on extending that, so I believe so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have questions.
Yeah.
So in this, in the consideration of the new social studies curriculum, has the Manduganon Anishinaabe Resource Manual been considered?
Well, I think what we're viewing that as a supplemental resource. And so, again, that's where we're looking at finding ways to, and I do think it's important to know, like, no program in any way captures everything that we need to be covering. And so we are often looking at things that we would then supplement with. So the committee has begun to look at that particular manual, look for opportunities where it would make sense to embed in the Studies Weekly scope and sequence, as well as the Scholastic News scope and sequence. And that also will have a lot of interplay with the language arts program as well. So both the ELA and Social Studies Committee are using that resource to find ways to then do some of those lessons within the classrooms.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I do want to impress that I feel like a broken record on this resource manual since I've been here. And that's not feeling very good. The other part is that, this is not just about inclusion, it's about restoring true history. Right now, European children know more about our Michigan tribal history than our kids do. And that's well documented. Canadian children know more than we do. So we're really behind, I think, beyond a third grade level in that vein. So that's something that I think we need to take very seriously. If we are trying to have a world-class, this beautiful education system that we have. And you yourself have mentioned our low scores. That's part of it, So I appreciate that you're working with Summer. I know that she's a good voice for that. But we need to be proactive.
I would also say that at the middle school level, that's another area that they are using that manual to reference. And again, the idea would be that these would be the core foundational materials, and then we would continue to find ways that we would pull in other resources.
Right. And just to mention, I have reviewed the ones that are being recommended by the intermediate, by Northwest Ed, and they really do fall like extremely short. That was why they pulled me in. So this is where we have to step in, right, and really be proactive. And this manual, for example, and you're right, it's a resource, it's an addition, is worked on by the 12 tribes of Michigan, and back in 2021 was approved by all of them. So those are,
Yeah, it's
sovereign
important.
nations
Yep.
saying yes. So that's something we need to highly consider. Thank you.
Is that, just to clarify, would that be an additional cost to the district, or is it a free resource that the district could acquire?
I'm sure it would cost to, at the very least, provide the materials, but
I believe
the tribes
resource
put it
itself
out
is
there.
free.
Yeah, the
it's
manual
out
is
there.
As far as printing and stuff, it's a digital.
Yeah.
Correct.
Digital resource.
It's out there for free on the internet, and that was on purpose,
Yeah, it's an
to
open
make it
resource.
accessible.
Very similar to what we have had with Open Book, but it is considered a free resource. You have to create the printed copies and things like that, but the actual resource itself is available and accessible.
So, yeah, and we have our own in-house printing resources. So obviously there's some cost still with paper and time, staff time, but could we maybe get a cost estimate of what that would look like to make that available for K through 5?
We wouldn't need to because we can just do that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just having it's one thing to make it, it's another thing to use it. And so I think that's what Holly's talking about, is making sure that we're looking at how it's embedded in our curriculum and being used. So that's what we're doing an audit right now of looking at across the board.
Okay.
So the idea would be, we would look at these primary resources, find where there would make sense to then embed other program, another resource, and scope and sequence that out. So if I'm a third grade teacher, I have a clear idea that on week 1, I'm going to do studies weekly. On week 2, I'm going to do this program on week 3. So we are in the process of doing that work for the K-5 level, looking at that and other resources. Because we recognize that not one program has everything.
Are we looking at it for all levels? That
K-5?
resource? I mean, up to 12 as well for that?
I would tell you that I don't know. I don't know the answer to that at the secondary level.
Okay.
I know that middle school is.
The middle school
There's been a
is, yes.
conversation. I have not had that conversation yet with our high school principals on where that's embedded within the U.S. history, because a lot of it is within Michigan history, and there isn't, those standards are not embedded in high school. It's U.S. history, which has some, that I think we could take a look at for sure. We haven't gotten to any kind of revision and looking at that curriculum and that element. But at the middle school level of Michigan history, those standards are embedded in, and so that's where we've kind of said, okay, right now I want to do an audit and take a look, making sure we have them there. And our high school is where we will look at next within that U.S. history. Is where I think we need to try and have that.
Are they still using the 2019 standards?
For social studies?
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't know our materials, unless I'm saying cover that, so.
Okay. Yeah, this curriculum was created specifically for and to fit into those standards.
Right.
And it has been state approved.
Yep. But most of those standards we teach, as I'm saying, at the middle school level within Michigan history and elementary. There's not a lot at the high school level in U.S. history. But I think that's something to take a look at what we can supplement, because what our materials, to the point, what our materials may show of European U.S. history versus that is what I think one of the things we need to take a look at when we look at that. We didn't even have really that course sequence and look at what we have online at the moment that show all the materials and where we're at in the pacing. But that's one of the pieces, like I said, we'll take a look with high school. We've tried to focus right now on elementary and middle school because that's the bulk of our Michigan history. But we'll have that conversation for sure with our high school for U.S. history specifically.
Okay.
So is there a time frame for that? Are we thinking by the end of this school year so we can have something?
The
perhaps
middle
new?
school right now, we're trying to have with that. High school, I don't know where we're at with, with that element. Like I said, I have not had that conversation with our high school principals yet.
Okay.
All right. So back to the this purchase. Any objections to moving this to consent?
No.
I'd like to put it on discussion, please. Thank you.
All of them or just the one?
Just the one.
Okay.
So, sorry, Trustee Bird, can you just specify which one did you want to put on discussion?
Number 3, elementary social
Okay.
studies. Thank you.
As it relates to the government quote that you had a question about the list price and sales price, just by looking at this, I think
Yeah.
I figured it out.
Okay.
So if you look at $30.95 for the list price, since it is for 5 years, 30.95 times 5 is not 134. It looks like she got a $4 discount per. The list price is actually $26.95. When you take 5 times $26.95, it's $134.75. So it looks like Cindy got a discount of $4 per.
Oh, I see.
Normally, 5 times 30.95 would be $154.75, so.
Got it. Okay. The license length, so the number of years times the list price is the sales
Yes.
price.
And she
then
got a $4 discount per.
times the quantity of students.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, we will move on to capital projects. The first item is a Great Start Readiness Program restroom addition at Long Lake Elementary, and I'll defer to Paul.
I'm going to jump in here
Christine?
because this one's a little bit confusing. So I don't know if you recall, but it says in here, in July, we went out for bid for a classroom partitioning project, and we also asked for pricing to add a restroom in a classroom at Long Lake that currently serves GSRP, which is our 4-year-olds. At that time, we didn't have general bond funds to be able to cover that. However, the quote is still good, and we would like to go ahead and move forward with that project because our licensed childcare director was able to get approval to use GSRP funds and her childcare funds to be able to do this, so it wouldn't be coming out of general fund or bond. So it's weird because I've got we've got the memorandum from July 20th, which was the original bid, because we did actually go out for a bid and get pricing, and this particular contractor is willing to hold his pricing, we can still use that bid without having to rebid the project, and that's our recommendation. So this summer, we'd like to add a restroom inside one classroom at Long Lake that serves GSRP, so that they don't have to go across the hall with the 4-year-olds. So that's GSRP funding, which is the state grant, and then childcare funding.
That also has that exterior door on it, too.
Yes, exterior
Yes.
doors, they're doing, so they're required to, parents are required to check in and check out. And so we're having them come in directly to the classroom door instead of through the main entrance.
So do they have different hours for GSRP?
But it's the same as the school day.
Okay. What about, what's the thinking in terms of them going through the front door? And I'm just thinking about, security issues with having another exterior door.
So,
Actually, that exterior door is required by code because of the age of the kids in that space.
To have one directly next to the
Directly
classroom.
exiting, yes.
but I'll explain the security part. So, because so we only have a teacher and an aide for 16 kids. And by going all the way to the main entrance, because we don't want parents walking through the school, by going to the main entrance, they have to try to sign in and watch 16 kids in the hallway as other kids are going through versus directly accepting them in the classroom and making sure the kids are in the classroom after they've been checked in and out.
Okay.
What is the,
Thank you.
what is the age of the kids again?
4.
4.
They have
So
to be
for
4
the
by
little ones.
December 1.
Okay.
Which is why it's really nice to have a bathroom in the classroom.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was-
and I was gonna say that between the two ages too, the level
Yep.
of cleanliness is
Yep.
just a
Yeah, so,
little bit different.
so both my kids went through Long Lake Elementary School, and at that time, they didn't have a GSRP classroom I'm just curious, where, is it in the K through 2 wing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Trying
It
to
was
picture which
actually, it
classroom
was
it
actually
was.
2 itinerant spaces that we are using as one. So it's like 2 small classrooms that we opened up to use as one. And by adding the restroom, we're removing the second interior hallway door. So we're really not losing much classroom space by adding the restroom, which is good.
Right, okay.
But it's nice, it's right by the office, so it's a good location.
I just wanted to point out, I really appreciate that the contractor did hold to the price from a year ago, because when I started reading this, I was like, okay, it's going to go up by 10% or more with inflation this last year, so that was nice.
And we've done a lot of work with them.
Yeah,
They've been
I definitely
Great contractor working with us.
recognize Ecker's name.
Yeah, they're working on print shop right now.
There.
Yeah. Okay. Great. No further questions from me, Dr. Trustee Raymond?
I'm good.
I'm good to move it to consent.
Hearing no objections, we will move this to the full board under consent. Next item on the agenda is transportation facility vehicle.
Yes, so this is typically an annual purchase. As you know, we can't use bond funds for any of our district vehicles, just school buses. So we have an annual allocation of general fund of $50,000 to maintain a safe and secure white fleet, as we call it. This year, it's become apparent that we need to replace the plumber's vehicle. I'm not quite sure how many miles are on his vehicle, but I can tell you probably the frame is becoming a little bit of an issue and quite a bit of rust. So, and he does have kind of specialized equipment, therefore, it's a little bit different vehicle than some of the pickup trucks we're driving. So I just wanted to explain that part because of the trade itself and what he's storing on the vehicle. It's a little bit different specification. We do get government pricing on this. We did go out for bid. We got 1, 2, 3, 4 bids, and obviously The recommendation is Lunghammer. Is that how you say it?
Lunghammer, yeah. Lunghammer?
Boomhammer.
Dr. Van Wagner, I have to ask, since you came from the Shiawassee ISD, was this based on a site
No.
visit on your part?
No,
Okay,
no.
all right. I was born in Owasso, Michigan, so that was kind of cool to see in the packet.
Yeah. I don't know the
Small
Ford dealer.
town.
I know the GMC Buick Cadillac dealer well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
very active in the district,
Okay.
the Young family, but I do not know the Lungian.
Yep.
The difference, what's a cutaway van as opposed to a regular van?
It has no back on it.
Okay,
So we'll have the vehicle delivered to a place that'll put a work box on the back of it.
gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And am I correct that the work box itself is considered for bond?
That is a bond.
It's
Yes.
equipment, so you can't buy the vehicle with bond, but you can buy the accessories and equipment to put on the vehicle. Just like our plows.
Interesting.
So I just had a small technical question. If you look at the comparison of the bids, so for the warranty on this, it says in the memo they provide bumper-to-bumper coverage, but then with a lead time, it says it's not provided. What does that mean?
The lead time is estimation of receiving the vehicle. And I think,
Okay.
like, we went out for a bid right after government pricing was even allowed. And so I think it was just way too early for them to estimate when the vehicle would show up on premises.
Okay. And then one thought occurred to me during this conversation about the rust you mentioned on the vehicle. So I'm guessing our new bus wash does not accommodate the white fleet?
No, it accommodates
It
all
does?
vehicle.
Okay.
Yes,
So,
that'll be very nice.
yeah, is that something you've also thought about, extending the life of our white
Hopefully.
fleet?
Absolutely.
Getting, I mean, we literally, those we have an easier ability to wash, obviously, but, we're not in our own facilities.
Yeah.
Buses, there's not like a bus wash, like that you just pull up, where there is more of a car, but having our own facility for them to be able to drive through, it will be able to do all vehicles. I had the chance to walk it just the other day, and it's about 90% there. It's pretty close. So,
Yeah, they were
see
able
it
to
in
get the,
Yeah.
I was going to say, Paul's probably
I
got
smelled in
photos.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for the invitation to the ribbon cutting for the bus wash.
Yes.
I think that should be a thing.
We'll do it
Just-
this summer.
We're gonna wait for the weather to change.
Yeah, after graduation. Okay.
Get one of the classes out there. to go
Exactly.
fundraise.
Exactly.
Any other questions on the van purchase?
No,
If not, I would recommend moving to the full board for consents.
sounds good.
Yep.
All right, we will do that. Moving on to our capital project update.
All right. I don't know if that's on or not.
I'm not sure. Is it on this one? Yeah.
He's not working.
No, it's.
Sorry, a little technical. Are you able to advance it for him? There.
Did you do it or did I do it? Okay, all right, so we'll just go there. All right, so this is the bus wash. This is a few weeks ago. They were putting in the tubes for the, in slab heat, the ice melt, snow melt outside of the entryway. Next picture. And there's the slabs in place. What we're waiting for right now is asphalt plants to open so that we can finish putting the asphalt down around this and actually opening the bus wash. We had scheduled the owner training and startup today, but we've had to push that off a minute. We might be able to bring in some gravel and fill the area so we can actually drive a bus in before we do it and do the startup procedures. But that's where we're at right now. Things are ready to go. And once the asphalt's in, it'll be operational, so. This is Central High. Footings and foundations for the new construction are mostly in, not quite all, and they've started backfilling. That's what you're looking at there is the visible part of those foundation walls in the backfill in the middle. And then that's at the south end. Go ahead.
I just want to ask, Can you go back one slide? Are the footings the vertical?
Those are
Bar-
rebar.
rebars.
Those are rebars, and that's, the masonry will come in, the masonry walls, they'll set the block over the top of that. So that's the reinforcing that goes up into the
Yeah.
masonry wall.
Is that what you call the footings, though?
The footings are, you can't see those. Go to the next picture.
Okay.
Those are the footings.
Okay.
And then the foundation wall gets poured on top of that, which is, this is the foundation wall.
Right,
On top of the footing. These are the footings.
gotcha.
And then these rebars extend out into the masonry wall, so it's all tied together.
Exciting.
And then interior, because of the height of the new addition and that we were concerned about snow load on the existing roof, so we're reinforcing some of the columns and beefing up the footings that were under those. So it's an existing column with a new footing under it. This West Senior High, not much has happened out there in the last week or two. The footings, foundations are all in, the backfill's in. The next step in this is popping some openings in the existing wall and starting the masonry construction against that wall. It's a timing thing. So we got to get the openings in the existing wall before we put the new masonry wall up. And that's where the masons want to start all of that. And we are waiting for some material deliveries out there as well. This is Saban, the print shop relocation. Demolition is almost complete, and new piping, new electrical work, the new construction is starting to show up. And that's the big space.
How
The
high
old-
those ceilings are, without all the drop ceilings in.
That's the old gym, cafeteria, been many things over time. New restrooms, all the underground piping going in. And just some other construction around through the space, but that's a new door opening between office spaces. That's it.
We're getting down to fewer projects for sure, where we've been, you know,
Have
And
we,
then we get a whole ton of them
well,
in
hopefully.
summer.
do we have a ribbon cutting scheduled for the West Athletic Fields?
We do. I think Stacy put that out, but I'll make sure it's shared out as well
Okay.
again. But I do know we have one. I think we're still a month away, if I remember.
Yeah, I
right.
thought it was
in
May.
Yeah.
I think we got
We did,
invitations.
okay. I
Yeah.
must have missed it.
We'll send it out again, just to,
Right.
It looks good, though.
it looks great.
I'm sure they're starting to use
It
it.
looks great, yeah. I mean, well, you know, it's snowing right now. So I was past
Couple
West
weeks ago,
yesterday, and
yeah.
they were inside. They have been on it some though, both softball and baseball have out there. And we did we got a little bit work going in the concession stand there. We had some piping and stuff for a drain and stuff and a sink put in, so that's almost ready. So should be good to go.
It's cute to see the kids are just chomping at the bit on those fields. So that when they're hanging up their signs on the
Yeah.
fences, they're all excited.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
little things that need to be done around a couple of spots and projects that are out there, but it's all weather dependent, you know, it's like those finished things that you've got to have the right weather for the length of time to get them in right,
Or like asphalt.
or like
I had
asphalt.
no
We have
idea that
grass.
they.
That was a part, there was a long time ago, we were worried right now if we'd have grass for the spring season.
And it would
And
be-
we have
yeah.
great grass. We got
Yeah.
a long growing season, last, fall, and the grass really came in. I mean, honestly, you know, and I don't know what you think, but I think that the grass at West right now is better than what we ended up playing on at Central.
It is.
Originally.
It
you know.
actually looks,
Yeah.
it almost
it's
looks
mu-
fake.
It
'cause
is, it's much more full.
It was so full,
and so,
yeah.
So yeah, we were really thrilled and, you know, cause they went a whole year without really a facility and so I know they're excited to be on there.
Yep. Any other capital project questions for Paul? If not, we will move to our finance update.
So I don't really have an update. I know John has a little bit as far as legislators and some of the talk in Lansing, so.
Yeah, it's starting to heat up a little bit. You know, the House is still at a split tie and will be until sometime mid-month. At that point is when they'll have the special election for the two seats that are up down in the Tri-County area, down Metro Detroit. But, you know, we're starting to see things come together for a budget. Probably the biggest thing right now that is materializing is the governor's proposal for expansion of early childhood is really being debated a lot. The debate is that, she's called for a universal preschool. Part of the problem with that is that you have some folks that, don't choose to choose in GSRP, still like a home-based maybe center or whatever. And like for us, as we look at, we didn't fill a GSRP class last year that we had available. And so, I definitely think that, there's nothing wrong with the expansion of the income threshold, for it. But we think that even with that, we think we might barely even still fill another one. The governor has, put $600 million into an expansion. And really what we've learned in kind of looking at the accounting mechanism to do that has done it on the back of our pension system. And what we learned is we pay about, help me out, 23, what do we pay retirement percent?
36%, right?
Without you.
But with the buy down, I want to say 22, 23%, am I right in there, that area?
Yeah, they cap it at 21, basically.
Right, okay. So what we're looking at is if they were to take that money that we are actually paying the system, that this is being used for, it would take us down to about 15% of what we pay. So to give you an idea on that payroll dollar, 15 cents of every payroll dollar versus 21 cents of every payroll dollar. For us as a district alone, I had the chance this week to hear the number, it's $4 million. Is that difference? So we're looking at barely making maybe an impact, we think, with GSRP, or $4 million for us to do what, we could do with ESSER dollars leaving, inflationary costs, all those kind of things. So that's going to be the debate right now that's just kind of narrowing down big on the school aid budget. That's going to be interesting on where that falls. I think the governor's still going to insist on something with preschool. And I think there's a lot of us that are in that mindset of, okay, let's expand the affordability, threshold and that, and see if that can make that difference. But at the same point, it's money that we, like a charter school doesn't pay, some others that don't pay that retirement legacy costs. Legacy costs, I've said for a long time, you've maybe heard me say, is just constantly a tough thing for us that many other entities don't have. And so they've paid down, it's 100% funded, the healthcare costs now are of the pension system, and they weren't before. We finally hit this threshold with that. And so we're like, either take that money and put it towards paying down sooner the retirement unfunded, which is only about 60% funded, or at least give us that money back for us to do things with kids. Don't just put it towards something that, especially for us, is not going to do the type of impact that it might in Metro Detroit area from that standpoint. So it's going to be interesting where the horse trading maybe lands on that, but we're hopeful to get some of that retirement liability, back to us, to not have to spend. That again gives us more dollars general fund for things that we need to do, for staff and kids, in our district. So that's really what's boiling down right now. Everything else from that standpoint is pretty much from everything the governor had proposed is pretty much maintaining what we were last year without much of an increase, about 2.5%, which with inflationary costs doesn't carbon copy what we're doing right now. So that's where we're trying to really have a debate. I'm going to try and get something. I just got, again, that information yesterday. I'm going to try and get with Betsy Kofia and John Nemus and John Roth and have a conversation just to have them understand kind of where we're at in this mix. And we'll continue to see what happens as we move closer to hopefully a budget before July 1.
So I'm just curious about the politics of this, as you've explained your concerns about the financial aspects and the practical reality of whether enough students would, families would take advantage of it.
And I didn't mention staffing, finding the
Yeah.
credentialed people is
That's right. You
near
mentioned that in the
impossible.
past. Yeah. Is this also, though, are there philosophical differences that are falling along political lines?
A little bit. I think that there's some that say, why are we paying for free childcare for people that are millionaires?
Yeah.
Kind of a thought, I think, is one of the political rhetorics, where you fall in that debate out there. I think, it's like, let's make sure that our kids of most need are covered.
Right.
And at the same point, not put it on the backs of all the other kids that, now we're going to underfund this to fund that. That's really where the political debate is. So that's where it just kind of falls. The governor originally laid out by the end of her term to have this goal, and now all of a sudden it's, oh, let's do it now. And everybody's like, where's the money? And we've learned the money is based off of this retirement system money that, as a district, we're all footing the bill for, and it's very much and my worry is if it goes to this and we still stay at that, there's nothing that finally, we're still 20 years away from paying off the other part of the pension system that's underfunded, and it's like, if we don't give that back now some way, where are we at? So, especially with all the ESSER money disappearing now, all the federal money, the inflationary costs, all those things, it's like, here's an opportunity to give us, a break on those legacy costs. At the same point, I think that there's a respect for, can we bring some more kids, some childcare that need it? The threshold they've raised, and it's getting to a point where I think it's getting to middle class folks, but I still think, personally, that there's some room to expand that age or the income limit, to just make sure that really everybody in that income bracket that really can need that support has that support for 4-year-olds in preschool.
Compromise, in other words.
And we'll see if government can pull that off, so.
Okay.
But the interesting part, though, is inter party.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of debate, obviously Democrats hold majority. I think there's a lot of debate within the party on this one versus, just Republicans and Democrats. So that's what, it's gonna be interesting where it falls.
Remind us, what's the timeline for the committee, the appropriations and the education authorizing
So
committees?
there really isn't, but what they try to do traditionally is by May 1st, we see both of the budgets of both the House and the Senate. With the fact that the two legislators are not going to be sat yet by mid to late April, we think that that's might get pushed by a few weeks. Maybe not, and so often they try and have the budget done the last week of June. We have to have a budget adopted by July 1, which means we have to have it done at our, June meeting. So we're not going to have the pleasure of knowing the actual budget as it goes down. So as always, we have to do our best estimates on the budgets that we see from the two parts of the legislature and the governor, and give our best guess where that falls.
Okay. Thanks for the overview. I
Yep.
appreciate it.
I'm just listening with fascination.
Yeah, yeah. And where that's gonna land, I have no idea.
Any other finance updates or, I guess, other items in general?
I don't think so.
All right, if hearing no other items, we will adjourn. Our next meeting is May 2nd at 8:15. We're adjourned. Thank you.